Kale adjusted the focus on his macro lens, the humid air of the jungle clinging to his skin like a second layer. The bloom he was photographing was a marvel of engineered biology, a flower that pulsed with a soft, internal light, its petals a gradient of impossible blues and violets. It was one of the last of its kind, a remnant of the early, optimistic days of terraforming. The air itself was thick with the scent of wet earth and the faint, metallic tang of the local flora. This was his sanctuary, a quiet corner of the world where the crystalline entities had not yet touched. He heard them before he saw them, not with sound, but with a sudden, chilling absence of it. The jungle's symphony of insects and birdsong didn't just fade. It was violently excised, leaving a void of profound and terrifying silence. He looked up from his bloom to see them standing at the edge of the clearing, facets of pure diamond catching the dappled sunlight. They moved with a terrifying, fluid grace, their forms shifting between geometric impossibilities. They didn't attack. They simply observed, their presence a physical pressure on his mind. One of them extended a crystalline limb, not towards him, but towards the flower. As it made contact, the bloom didn't just die. It unbloomed, its vibrant colors draining away, its structure collapsing into a pile of gray, inert dust. Kale felt a cold dread seep into his bones. They weren't just destroying life, they were erasing beauty. The crystalline beings, whom the humans had come to call the Sileni, did not speak, did not make threats, did not even seem to acknowledge Kale's presence beyond a cursory assessment. They moved through the jungle with a singular purpose, a silent, methodical scouring. They would touch a tree, and its leaves would turn to ash. They would brush against a stream, and the water would flow still and lifeless. They were a cancer of order in a world of chaotic, vibrant life. Kale joined the resistance, a loose network of scientists, botanists, and survivalists who had made it their mission to understand and stop the Sileni. They had no weapons that could harm the crystalline forms. Their only defense was knowledge. Alara, a xenobotanist with hands permanently stained green from her research, explained their chilling discovery. They don't consume, she whispered, her voice raw from days without proper rest. They simplify. They perceive our complex, emotional, messy biology as a kind of noise. An error. They are purging the universe of what they see as inefficient data. Kale looked at the vibrant, chaotic jungle around them, at the tangled vines and the competing species, and he realized something profound. The Sileni were not evil. They were simply terrifyingly, perfectly logical. And humanity, with all its art, its love, its irrationality, was to them a mistake that needed correction. The Sileni had begun to converge on the planet's primary atmospheric processor, the one that maintained the delicate balance of oxygen and trace gases. If they reached it, they wouldn't destroy it. They would simplify it. The entire planet's ecosystem would collapse into a sterile, inert state. The Human Council, a desperate collection of leaders from the scattered settlements, debated their final stand. They had no army, no fleet, no weapon that could even scratch the diamond-hard hide of their enemy. Kale stood in the council chamber, the air thick with the scent of fear and stale coffee. He looked at the holographic projection of the processor, a vast, organic-looking structure pulsing with energy. He thought of the bloom, the tree, the stream, all of it made silent and still. He thought of Alara, who had stayed behind in her lab, documenting the Sileni's every move until the very end, her last transmission a choked whisper of data. He thought of his own capacity for grief, for love, for the irrational, burning need to protect something beautiful even when it made no logical sense. "We can't fight them," Kale said, his voice quiet but clear in the tense silence. "Not with force. We have to give them something they can't process." The plan was insane, born of desperation and a deep, human understanding of their enemy's limitations. They couldn't build a weapon, but they could become one. Kale and a small team of volunteers, all of whom had lost someone or something to the Sileni, made their way to the atmospheric processor. They carried no guns, only vials of a genetically engineered retrovirus, one designed not to kill, but to amplify. It was a biological payload that would turn the processor's internal ecosystem into a chaotic, screaming maelstrom of raw, unfiltered emotion. It would be a symphony of pain, love, fear, and joy, all broadcast at a frequency the Sileni's logical minds could not comprehend. As they approached the structure, they saw the Sileni already there, their facets gleaming as they began their work of simplification. The first volunteer, a man named Jorik who had lost his entire family to the ash touch, stepped forward without a word. He plunged the vial into an access port and turned to face the advancing crystalline forms. He didn't run. He simply stood there, his face a mask of defiance and sorrow, and let the virus consume him from the inside out. He screamed, a sound of pure, unadulterated agony that echoed in the suddenly very loud jungle. The Sileni paused, their forms flickering with confusion. The retrovirus worked with terrifying speed. The atmospheric processor, once a place of regulated, calm function, became a tempest of raw, unstructured data. Kale watched from a distance, hidden in the dense foliage, as the Silenti swarmed the structure. They touched its walls, but instead of finding orderly systems, they were met with a cacophony. They were bombarded with the amplified emotional resonance of 1,000 human sacrifices. They felt the echo of Jorik's agony, a wave of pure, unfiltered suffering. They felt the memory of Alara's quiet love for her research, a feeling of warmth and wonder that had no logical source. They felt the desperate, illogical will to live that drove Kale and his team to hide. The Sileni began to falter. Their perfect geometric forms wavered, their facets clouding over. They had no protocol for this. They had no way to process illogical, self-destructive, yet utterly beautiful concepts like sacrifice and love. It was a paradox their minds could not resolve. One by one, they shattered, not from any physical force, but from the unbearable weight of a universe that made no sense. Kale remained in the shadows, listening to the silence return, but this time it was different. It was an empty silence, a silence that held the memory of a song. He had won, but the victory was a hollow one, paid for with the essence of what it meant to be human. He was alone on a silent world, a living monument to a price he had been forced to pay.